Hi guys, Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. Thanks for being here. I hope you're doing well today. We're going to continue the workings of Brahma and Shakra. Before I continue, just to again reiterate, I don't know, I probably say this often enough, but you may just be starting on this video. Brahma, Shakra, why do we talk about these Hindu deities, right? Or Bodhisattva Hachiman, for that matter, or the sun goddess, right? There's a lot, Nichiren talks a lot about, or with, I should say, these quote-unquote deities, because they are in the popular cultural discourse of his day, of his time, of his country, his place, because he uses them as tools of explanation. You know, we grow up in our places, in our regions. You may grow up in the United States, for instance, or the UK, or whatever your country. Your country is subdivided into smaller units, all the way down to your town. And you should recognize that even though you're Dutch, or you're English, or you're American, or you're Canadian, the different provinces, the different states, the cultures are different. There may be a large cultural identity, no doubt, but there are also micro-identities, micro-cultural identities, all the way down to your neighborhood has a different cultural identity than the neighborhood once, twice, three times removed from your neighborhood, right? We're innumerable. Again, the word comes to mind. But certainly on these overarching general things like the sun goddess, Japan, the word Japan in Japanese means land of the rising sun, right? So the sun goddess is a very inculcated cultural identity, and it has specific deep meanings, although they're colored differently by different areas of Japan. But there's a deep abiding sense of that thing in the culture. And therefore, being Japanese, being in Japan, in the land of the rising sun, with samurai, very authoritarian, very ritualistic, Nichiren can use that reference as a very solid fundament for people to think about their allegiances, the way they think, the way they appease their greater self, even though they may not completely understand the idea of a self and environment as one, as Itai Doshin, as all of that. If he uses examples that are clear culturally, then he can start to develop a deeper understanding of the Buddhist concepts, right? The same thing I try to do here anyway for us. I'm not, I'm kind of a mutt. You know, I've born French Canadian, which being Quebecois is a very specific thing in Canada. Moving across Canada all over the place to British Columbia, very different. Not to an American perhaps, but to a Canadian, very different. And then down to San Francisco and the Southern California, and then to the Mid-South, lived in the Northeast, you know, from New York to Wyoming to Texas to now Mississippi. I've seen a lot of different country and cultures just in North America, right? So I have different things that I've contrasted and melded with. So when I read Nichiren, and I encourage you as well, even if you've never moved anywhere in your life, to start to expand your thinking about these things. These are not Brahma and Shakra and Hachiman. They are not Buddhist gods. That's my overarching point here. Don't get lost in, well, you say there's no gods and no deities in Buddhism. Well, they're not. But as a tool to understand what the American flag is to an American is a certain strange cultural reality that points to certain identifications, right? So this is why you hear these things brought up in the sutras from India, in the translations in China, Korea, Burma. All these different cultures have inculcated stories of their own into the explorations of Buddhism. But Buddhism itself doesn't support these cultural identifications, these deities, these gods, but they're often used to relate to the people of the region, the time, the place, to investigate their own thinking, the makeup of their own identity. Right? We're very immediate. We put on a suit and tie, that's our identification for the day, and we go into work. Or we put on shorts and a t-shirt and we go do that activity, or tennis wear, or whatever. We're very immediate about how we construe our identity. So if I speak to you about something that's a larger, more abstract cultural concept, then you have to look a little deeper into, yeah, that's kind of the way I feel about that. And now I understand if that's affected, then that's really more of a paradigm shift. The earth moves a little bit underneath me. Humans are tricky. We make these associations and identifications, and we are attached to them. We build them into our cellular idea of a self. And so if we're going to access that, oftentimes as we speak to one another, we'll use larger concepts that are more identifiable as concrete. When you share your ideas with a close friend and you explore something that you've actually done in your life alone, your friend may not have experience around what you just did, and they'll struggle to understand your situation, whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent. But if you speak about, going to the football game, and they've been to football games, both of you have reached a sort of commonality, even though you both experience it differently. It's comical, really. You have more of a sense of understanding one another, right? So that's what this is why I call it stories in Buddhism, because they're ways of penetrating our humanness and relating it to the device, the method of awakening, right? So, with all of that, let's head into this. I don't know, I think we'll be able to finish this one today. It's not that long. So, Nichiren continues. If your resolute mind is firm, then you should single-mindedly resolve, I, quote, maintain a resolute mind not for the sake of other people, but for the benefit of my deceased father. Others will not perform memorial services for him, because I am his son. I am the one who must meditate for his repose. I govern one village. I will spend 1/2 of my revenue making offerings for the sake of my deceased father, and use the other half to feed my wife, children, and clansmen. Should an emergency arise, I will give my life for my Lord. Lord being the master, right? I should change that word. Usually the master was the landowner that was hiring this worker or samurai, right? Speak in a, end quote, speak in a mild manner, no matter what the circumstances. So, what he's talking about, and is obviously in this letter, he's responding to Ueno, whose father is recently passed, and there's two things happening here. On the one hand, Nichiren is concerned about his student, His student has just had a major blow, losing his father. When humans, we get emotional, we tend to kind of forget our vows, kind of forget what our life is about, and we get completely immersed in the trauma at hand, right? So right now, Ueno doesn't care that that he's a samurai. He doesn't, if he's having disagreements with his wife, he's ready to walk out. If his lord or master or the ruler, his employer, in other words, doesn't give him enough merit, then I'm just, my dad's dead, I'll move away, who cares? This is what we do as humans. We just get emotional and stupid. Our mind goes all over the place. And there's a danger in that situation of saying, I've been working too hard to do this Buddhism on top of everything else. What a load of crap, I'm going to quit. So obviously, Nichiren has spent a lot of time in this letter cautioning and supporting Ueno, telling him, don't let doubts ruin your practice. Don't lose your way and suddenly lose your resolve to your awakening, to your enlightenment. Realize the bounty that you're experiencing in your life and your family and your clansmen, all due to your practice of MyoHoRenGeKyo. Don't let this shake your practice. And at the same time, so that's the one thing, at the same time, he's wanting to help him deal with the death of his father. How do I appropriate all of these emotions I'm feeling and feel as though I'm performing my filial duty, that I'm honoring my father, and not blow everything else that I'm doing. So he's given her a path. Do a half and half, Nichiren says. Understand that no one can understand your filial responsibility to your father the way you do. So don't count on anyone else. Don't start the mental machinations of resenting people because they're not understanding how deep your sense of loss is. Stop that. Stop those emotional monkeys, right? And just focus on yourself. You can do this, and you don't have to throw everything at it in order to be a filial son. Just take half of what you're doing right now and focus on doing right by your father, your deceased father, and the other half be a responsible man, a responsible, working father, husband, right? And take care of those responsibilities because they're filial too. Do those two things. See, reduce all of this plethora of stuff that's swirling around in your head and just do those two things. And I'm sure he'll remind him to use his practice as a support. So it's very compassionate. He goes on to say, if people should try to weaken your belief in the Lotus Sutra, consider that your resolute mind is being tested. See, as I've said before in these previous Go shows, this is a time period where the True Word School, along with Zen and the others schools at the time, were feeling very challenged by Nichiren. And so any opportunity, your dad's died? Well, maybe it's time you stop practicing that stupid Nichiren guy and get back to the fold and do what we do. So he's going to get a lot of that because he's in a social job. He's a samurai, but it's very social. It's very about bonds of between people. So that's something he struggles with too. All of them do, right? In this day and age, in 13th century Japan. Tell them, sardonically, quote, I deeply appreciate your warning. However, you should save your admonishment for yourselves. I know well that our employer does not approve of my resolve. The idea of your threatening me in his name, is simply absurd. I was contemplating visiting you all and giving you some advice, but you came here before I could follow through. you will surely join your palms together and beseech me for help when you, along with your beloved wife and children, are dragged out before King Yama. Nichiren's very confrontational. I just did a video about confrontation. But understand, these are samurai days. This is authoritarian government. And when you face that, which we very well, there's been a lot of influence and force in that direction in this very country and worldwide, we may end up in this situation. This is when Nichiren talks about shakabuku, breaking people's erroneous ties to fallacy and so forth. And we see today the irrelevance of truth or fact becoming mainstream. It's hideous and it's mind-boggling to watch, but entire cults of just no truth. They just say whatever they want and manufacture any facts, alternative facts. Can you imagine that actually is on the airwaves? I can't believe we're in this situation. But at the same time, Nichiren is really good advice for this very situation. So he's saying, these people come up to you and they tell you that maybe now it's time, that you toe the line and do what we do. Nichiren doesn't say be kind and accepting and say, yeah, thanks for the advice, have a nice day. No, he turns it right around. It says, you're absurd. You're absurd, and you will reap the effects of this absurdity, and then you'll be coming to me for advice. So there's a couple of reasons why Nichiren would do that. Number one, because this is a samurai, and the samurai understands taking a stand. Understands taking a stand means that the samurai himself will be how should I say this? He'll be bolstering his own convictions. It will help him know where he is in his practice and shake away doubts and so forth, right? False emotions of wanting to belong. He doesn't need to do that. He's a samurai. Be honorable. Show that you know full well what you're doing. It doesn't mean take out your sword and swipe a couple of people, right? So there is a limit, but he's using his words to say, I know full well what I'm doing. Don't have the audacity to tell me you know better. You're just doing what you're told, authoritarian stooge, right? So that's meaningful. That works. That doesn't mean you and I should do that every time we're in a confrontation. It depends on the confrontation. If it's some other form of Buddhist who comes and admonishes us, it's our responsibility to put them down. But not by ridiculing them so much as demonstrate our depth of resolve. That's an important difference. Don't let the ego get control of you here. This is about proper practice. If it's a non-Buddhist, then you have to kind of have pity on them. They just don't know. And that can be everything from, thank you for your offer. It's not something that has any value for me in my life. If you'd like to learn something about Buddhism. I had somebody come to the door a few years ago here who was Jehovah's Witness. And, she was a nice elderly woman. Her husband was waiting for her out in the car. And you got to admire the in a way I admired her. I don't admire the practice because these poor people are being pushed out there to become prophets, which they're not. They're just people trying to belong, and they're being pushed to do the work of their organization and recruit. I think that's heinous. But I saw her as a gentle soul, and she asked a couple obviously prepared questions, and I invited her in, And I said, well, I'm a Buddhist. And she didn't want to come in at first. I guess that's probably not part of their thing. But she was very curious. Oh, you're a Buddhist. And in this area, a lot of people don't have much information about Buddhism. So there's still a lot of open curiosity. Well, I felt bad for her husband because she came in, sat down. I gave her a beverage. We talked for quite a bit about Buddhism. Never another word about the Jehovah's Witness thing. All she wanted to know was more and more about Buddhism. Well, how's this? Well, how's that? Wow, isn't that fascinating? And she ended up, I actually moved her out of the door because I was worried about her husband, and thanking her for coming by and having a chat. And anytime you have more questions or anything, please come back by. My door's always open. And thank you so much. It's like she didn't really want to leave. So I turned that around, to what degree that impacted her. I'm sure she has a lasting memory of it. What she does with it is up to her, right? This is shoju. So I'm just demonstrating. There's such a spectrum for you by studying Nichiren, you have all the tools you need to, first of all, have dignity and respect for your own practice. That's number one. That is what will convince others, right? Not just your words. The words are tools, like these deities and so forth, right? All right, let's listen to more Nichiren. And when he says dragged out before King Yama is an actual person, right? It's that force of samsara, the samsaric reality, the mundane, the earthly, right? What you say about Niida may well be true. And we don't know who that is right now. Maybe it would be helpful to know. Let's see if we have a quick. Niida Shiro Nobutsuna, a follower of Nichiren who lived in Hatake of Izu province. He was an elder brother of Nichimoku Shonin, 1260 to 1333, and his mother was an elder sister of Nanjo Tokimitsu. Okay. Together with Tokimitsu and others, he endeavored to spread the Nichiren's teachings in northern Japan. What Tokimitsu reported about him is not clear, but presumably the shonen means that Niida never yielded to persecution, but steadfastly maintained his resolute mind. So, as he's speaking here to Ueno, he's referencing something Ueno wrote in the letter about Niida. So, obviously, Ueno's letter was concerned with resolve and how he should go forward. So, Nichiren's given him a nod about that. I've also heard about the people at Okitsu. If the occasion arises, you should behave exactly as they did. When those of rank reproach you for your resolute mind, think of them as worthy adversaries of the Lotus Sutra. So if your boss berates you for your resolve in Lotus Sutra, MyoHoRenGeKyo, think of your boss as a worthy adversary of the Lotus Sutra. So if you think of him in this way, instead of thinking of him as our knee-jerk response would be jerk, ass, whatever, right? Or fear. Instead, think of him as a worthy adversary. In other words, the confidence of your practice should always be present. Consider it an opportunity as rare as the blossoming of an Udumbara plant or the blind turtle encountering a floating sandalwood log. That's the whole story. I'm sure if you're not familiar, look it up. And reply to them firmly and resolutely. See, there it is again. Always from a place of confidence. Never kowtow or laugh at these people. Just be confident. There have been instances in which those who governed 1,000 or 10,000 cho of land had their lives summarily taken away and their estates confiscated over trifling matters. If you give your life now for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, what is there to regret? Bodhisattva Medicine King burned his own body for 1,200 years and became a Buddha. King Suzudan made a bed of his own body for his teacher for 1,000 years. As a result, he was reborn as Shakyamuni Buddha. So obviously these are all fanciful stories, folklore in the sutras, which if you're studying Buddhism, you'd be familiar with. And so when Nichiren quotes these stories, it's very easy to miss the depth of understanding that he's pointing to. There's a certain scholarship here that's assumed. And so if these things seem a little fanciful to you, it would be because, like the sandalwood log, something you haven't studied yet. So take this opportunity as we read a Go show like this and say, let me go find out about that turtle and the sandalwood log. Once you know that story, it will forever be the meaning of the story that you recall, not the players. The sandalwood or the turtle, those will be little hooks of memory. But the moral, the ethic, the meaning of the teaching is what you'll recall. And this is what Nichiren does. He points to these different studies, these different stories in the sutras as a reminder. Remember this, right? Make no mistake, he says, if you abandon your resolve in the Lotus Sutra now, you will only make yourself the laughingstock of your foes. If you let them succeed, then you'll forever be that dolt who went off and did that silly thing. That's what they want. They want to belittle you because it gives them power. Don't give them that power. Show them that you're doing what you know is right. And they're making their own decisions. Fine. But you won't sway me. And eventually, in fact, you'll be coming to me to learn what I know. So back off or join me, right? Shamelessly pretending friendship. Now that's a very important distinction here he's making in this. And I saw him alluding to it earlier. They will try to maneuver you into recanting with the intention of later laughing at you and letting others ridicule you as well, what I just said. Let them say all they have to say, then tell them, quote, instead of advising me in the presence of many people, why don't you admonish me yourselves first? With this remark, abruptly rise from your seat and depart. That's quite a statement. So if these people who are emboldened by all their friends being around want to put you down and tell you, stop following that, stop doing that silly Buddhism, or in this case, they're Buddhists, but, this school of Buddhism, stop it. Instead of saying, yeah, maybe you're right, let's go have a beer. No, that's not good. That's not good because you're dealing with other schools of Buddhism here who are in error. So as a Buddhist, you can't tolerate that. This is the dynamic here. Everyone's a Buddhist in Japan at that time. So if these other Buddhists are assailing you, you can't let that stand. That doesn't mean you have to whip out your sword and annihilate them. It means that you need to see them as a worthy adversary, and you need to stand your ground. That doesn't mean rush in and attack. Stand your ground means have dignity, be short, end the conflict by walking away, but leave with them knowing that you're not in the least bit swayed. And in fact, as he's saying here, why don't you admonish me yourselves first? In other words, it's very nice for you to get all loud and blustery with all your backing, friends here. But if you want to challenge me, pick a time on your own when you and I personally can debate this. Right? And then with that, get up and walk away. Put it back on them. Please let me know in a day or two what has happened since you wrote. There are so many things I want to say that I cannot write all of them here. I will do so in my future letters. With deep respect, Nichiren. So this letter was written at Minobu when he was retired. 1277 is the date they give. It is entitled The Workings of Brahma and Shakra because it contains the passage, quote, "The time will certainly come when, by the workings of Brahma and Shakra and other deities, the entire Japanese nation will simultaneously take a resolute mind in the Lotus Sutra." So this is an inspiration for the title, but obviously it's a day-to-day occurrence. These forces within human beings and societies and cultures that shift and move and influence, right? So Nichiren encourages the 19-year-old Nanjo Tokimitsu, who succeeded his father as the steward of Ueno village in Fuji district of Suruga province, to maintain a resolute mind. So this is Nanjo Tokimitsu, who became a very, very strong supporter of Nichiren. I ended up being a landowner and donating some land to Nichiren, I believe. And so, this is a very strong letter of encouragement to a 19-year-old man who already has a wife and children. Maturity came much sooner to people of that day. And really, an amazing piece of advice for all of us. This seems to have been coming up in our Sangha quite a lot lately, the issue of how to handle confrontation with, certainly with another Buddhist, right? And this is a big topic today because we do have several schools of Buddhism vying for attention and survival. Some are far more, evangelical, which seems an odd word to use with Buddhism, but we have some sects and some cults, groups out there that are oddly egotistical about their practice. It really boggles my mind. But this is human nature. If they're like my example earlier of the woman who's a Jehovah's Witness, I have no fear or intimidation at all that she's going to sway me. I see her as a lost person who's searching. And so if there's an opportunity to imbue her with some knowledge of Buddhism, of whatever I have that can influence her, then I'll give her that time. She made the trouble to come all the way out here in the country to my home and seek me out. She may not even know how much she was driven to do that because of her seeking spirit. Had she not wanted to come in and took me to task, then, I would have simply told her to have a nice day and thank you so much for visiting, and I'm not interested in your brand of shoelace. Please go away. And come back if you're ever interested in learning something about true spiritual knowledge and enlightenment. I'll always be here for you. Have a nice day. Bye. But if it's somebody from whatever they're practicing, even if they're practicing the same thing, but their attitude in meeting me is confrontational, that they want to tell me what for and what I'm doing wrong and then now I've practiced over 40 years. So I'm going to listen carefully, and I'm going to shut down my little gorilla monkey who wants to just snap back at this fool. And I'm going to put on my compassion jacket and understand that this is a Buddhist practitioner who's in deep conflict and trouble, and I'm going to offer to help them, That doesn't mean they'll take the offer. That may mean, as I've had happen before, it turns into an extended debate. But what drives me in those instances is to stay absolutely calm, to actually force a smile on my face because it helps me inside. Have you ever done that? If you feel really depressed or you're having a hard time solving a problem, is just take a deep breath, or a couple or three or four, and smile. Just smile. Smile. Find something to smile about. It's an odd thing, but if you can force yourself physically not to do this, but to just sit back and go, there's a weird shift that happens cellularly in your body. It's like your body, your monkeys are going, he's smiling. Are we supposed to be happy about something? Is there something good going on? It's like your body and your mind simply get confused, and they relax a little bit. And you can regain control of your own mind. And you can say, okay, what do you really try to dive into, not the words, but what they're trying to express. Never address words. Address feelings. Not feelings, meaning, sorry. Try to seek out what it is. What you'll find is most often when somebody's upset, Buddhism or no, that there's a lot of confusion in the words. The meanings are all over the place. They're not consistent. But even if they are, more the better for you, because then you know what you need to address. You may say, oh, hold on, I was just reading something about that. You want to read it together? Keep thinking, I'm the one who knows this correctly. I know if I don't know it right now, I know where to find it. I know that what I'm practicing is MyoHoRenGeKyo. It is the ultimate in Buddhist teaching. So no matter how we attack it, we're going to end up, here's the center. Never allow your opponent in a Buddhist to Buddhist argument to be the center of the argument. They are a worthy adversary, which means they're coming to your gate, your castle. They are trying to penetrate your castle. So you want to make the path gentle and open and wise rather than confrontational. Oh, you want to come into the castle? Are you hungry? Would you like something to drink? Do you see? Instead of, oh, you're not getting in here. That's not going to lead to anything. In fact, if there's enough nurturing and compassion, they will either come to you, come to your side of things. They may leave frustrated. I didn't convince him. Well, or you may rebuff them right there. They may just leave in frustration. Have a safe trip. Maintain your dignity. There is no greater dignity than awakening your perfect and complete enlightenment. How could there be? Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Be careful out there. Humans can be kind of crazy. So, but at the same time, don't let your guard down for the same reason. Be well, be smart, take care of your health, and remind the people in your environment that you care for them, respect them, love them. We need to do that more these days. We take it for granted an awful lot. So, with that said, I deeply respect and love all of you. And your practice is so precious. Thank you for sharing it with me. Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. See you next time. Bye.